Okay, and we're
Everything's rolling?
Yep.
Okay. This is episode unknown. It's the second one with Marco. Timer. Welcome to the Steve Show. Guess what? I've got Marco back, and we're going to talk about the power of vacation again, but this time we're going to talk about the impact it's made. We're going to talk about other business owners that started their whole business just by going on a vacation. So let's get started. So Marco, we had to keep talking, right? You know, so I had to fly him all the way back out from Mexico City. No, I'm just kidding. We actually were going so long, we said, you know what, we have to do a second episode. In the last episode, if you caught it already with Marco, we talked about why it's so important to take vacation, but more importantly, like why, in that episode, why people don't do it and what they should think about and how hard it was to take vacations many, many years ago. And now, and even actually not too long ago. Yeah. And now what's happened in the last 10, 20 years and how it's made it so easy to travel. And this episode, the reason we decided to do a second one is because I wanted to really dig in with Marco with all the research he's done with his upcoming book, The Power of Vacation. Why and how, and maybe tell some stories about the impact it's made of, so I guess let's start with this. Like what, you know, if you could think of one story to start with where it's made a tremendous impact on someone's life, maybe their trajectory, like they went on a vacation and the trajectory of their life has shifted just because of that time they gave themselves.
Right, so a gentleman from Colorado went on his vacation to Belgium. He loved to ride his bike. You know, a lot of people in Colorado own bikes, and that's what they do on weekends when it's not snowing.
Yeah.
So he went to Belgium, and he also loved beer. Colorado's a big state for beer. And so he went to Europe, and he was touring Belgium in his bike, a big fat tire bike. And he was making, you know, all sorts of stops along the way, just visiting breweries and finding out how they make beer and drinking a lot of beer. And that gave him the idea to start a brewery back home. And he started in his home, in his garage, and that company just grew and grew, and today it's what's known as New Belgium Brewing Company that brews Fat Tire beer, which is, it's still a microbrewery, but, you know, Fat Tire is now selling all over the US. It's, you know, a lot of people know it.
Right.
But the idea was sparked by taking a vacation in Belgium, riding a Fat Tire bike, and going to breweries. Right. And you know, there's many stories like that where people saw something, heard something, and they got an idea to start a business or just an idea to implement in their current jobs that help them advance their careers.
Right.
So it's very magical.
Right. And so I guess sometimes it's just by having an experience like that. He was actually riding a Fat Tire bike and had that experience. And I guess other times it's maybe just because you have the time. I know for me, like I've had ideas, like one thing, like even that we're doing this episode, you know, some people know I have a background in film. I went to film school, and then I, you know, built an ad agency, and we started doing the marketing, and we won awards. So people asked me to speak and teach, and I've taken this whole leap towards being a trainer. And it was on a flight, I think it was on my way back from Australia. So I spent 9 days in Australia, and I was doing a little bit of work and a little bit of leisure and meeting with friends there and spent some time on the beach. But on the way back, I wrote in my journal and I said, I'm going to turn all my lessons into movies and even start producing this show because I can use all my film background and start creating these stories and get them out. And so it wasn't necessarily that I was riding on a Fat Tire bike or that idea. It was actually just the time.
Yeah.
You know, that's amazing. And then how else? Like I guess I'm really looking because we're talking about the power of vacation, which is crazy to even say because people think, oh, vacation, relaxing, and here we're saying power. So what are some of the other powers that come from vacation?
Well, you know, like I told you last time. It all depends what you do with your time, with your vacation time. It's our most precious asset. We got to use it wisely. And so if you just go to the beach and do nothing for 7 days, get drunk maybe, you know, and get exhausted by the sun, get sunburned, and, you know, you're going to come back even more tired, and then you don't want to take a vacation ever again. That kind of doesn't work. But if you follow your passions, if you follow your heart, and you do those things that you've always wanted to do, learn something, take the kids to a country where they write a different alphabet. Never mind speaking a foreign language, but where they write a different alphabet, where you won't be able to understand a thing and see how that's like and how it feels. And again, you know, it's just going to give you ideas, and it's going to be wonderful. Experience different food. Take cooking classes. Nowadays, you know, everything is out there. Everything you've always wanted to know and learn, it's out there. Right. So go do it. Experience it. Right. You know, why stay home and watching TV or you know, just reading the newspaper, all this bad news? Go out there and experience the world.
Right. You know, you just remind me of something. My wife and I, we were in Jamaica right after September 11th happened. And even we decided to take the trip because it was right after. So it was like the end of September. We went, and it's easy to remember because it was my honeymoon. We had this trip planned, and you know, we're both like, okay, let's go. And the airport was empty. It was like the strangest thing. And they told everyone to go like 3 hours early. We went through everything and like the fastest I've ever gone through the check. But the biggest thing was being away. Like, you know, the United States declared war at that moment after September 11th, and all those things happened. But we were, you know, in a different place. And I guess it was kind of a little weird because when we came back, you know, there was guns in the airport and all those things. But overall, I'm so glad that we took that time. You know, both of us were working so hard before the wedding, too. I was producing a film, running my company. My wife was building homes in the San Francisco Bay Area for Habitat for Humanities, doing that and building my sets on my movies. And then going on that trip, that's why I think we decided not to let that go. And I'm so glad that we did. And I mean, I guess just thinking of that, there's like all these things we could have easily said, oh, let's not go.
Right.
You know?
It's so easy to turn vacation down. So easy. Don't do it. That's the bottom line. Don't do it. You know, go on vacation.
You're right. Like, you know, one thing that I talk about in my workshops is that, you know, when you know, think about times when you clocked in for a job. Mm-hmm. And if you were late to work, think about how your heart is like beating faster. You're having this anxiety, like, oh my gosh, I'm late for work. How much we'll beat ourselves up for somebody else, and yet we won't show up for our own self.
Exactly.
And it's
so sad. You know, currently in the U.S., every year, over 658 million vacation days go unused.
658
million.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. We're crazy. It's nuts.
That's you know,
I can't even, you know, say the number. It's such a big.
I always thought you were going to say like 6, and then even million. Even if it was 6 million, that seems a lot. Yeah. 658 million.
And now, when I started working, you know, on this project, I've been in the travel industry all my life, but when I started working on this project about 3 years ago, the number was just over 400 million. So it went up incredibly
200 million
in 3 years.
In 2 years, 3.
So the problem is not, you know, it's not going away. It's actually growing. On average, every working American leaves 2 vacation days on the table, and that's the average. So that means that, you know, some people are good and they take their full vacation, and others don't take any vacation at all.
Right.
And then you get sick and you wonder why, and you know, and then your relationships are, you know, all turning sour, and you wonder why, because you're not spending that time doing the things that you really want to do, the things that are important for you. You're not spending the time with your loved ones.
Right. And well, you know, and this is like, I mean, that's why I'm having here, Marco, and that's why we're doing this second episode, because there's so much to talk about this, because I've noticed in my own life, and I was working so hard, and then for what? And what time was lost? And, you know, it's crazy. You think, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose time, and I'm not going to be able to get that work done. Or I think last time we talked, you were saying how people think the stack of work is going to be even more when they get home, so they don't even bother going. But I can imagine the things that are in my life. Like even where we are on this property, I didn't have a vision of this until I was on a trip in Peru. And it wasn't I was thinking about moving. I wasn't even thinking about that at the time. But it just popped into my head because I had the clear time to just relax in the moment. And so I can look at the impact on my life. I wouldn't give it up for the world, and I wish I did more sooner.
And you know, also when you're on vacation, we talked about gratitude, you know, and feeling grateful when you're on vacation and you're standing in front of an incredible mountain, when you are, you know, even in a theme park or by the ocean looking at the sunset, you get the honest, true feelings of gratitude. So just like that, you know, when you're traveling, you're present. You know, you're not thinking about other things. You're there. When you're in the office, you know, you're thinking of being home.
Right.
When you're home, you're thinking about the work you left in the office. But when you're traveling, you're there.
You have to be observant because you're somewhere new. If you're, how many times have you driven from your office to your house over and over and over, and then you don't even remember the drive one day because you're on autopilot because you already know the way. And when you go somewhere new, you have to be aware of what's going on.
So it makes you be very present, very present.
Right.
And you know, also one of the really powerful things about traveling is that we connect as human beings.
Right.
Nowadays, with those little flat boxes that we have in our hands, you know, we've lost the human connection. And then there's another question that's arising nowadays. You know, how do you disconnect from technology? Or do you? Can you? And, you know, ideally, you should. You could. It's a matter of getting organized. And I have a friend who's actually he's like a social media teacher, guru. So he has to be online all the time, you know, with his students. And a couple of years ago, he went on a cruise to the Caribbean, and he decided he was going to just turn his technology off and leave it off for the duration of the trip.
Right.
Can you imagine the anxiety?
Oh my gosh, because he was doing it every day.
Every day, and that's how he makes his living. And he's alive. He survived.
Oh my gosh! Right?
Can you imagine? He survived.
It's so it's so wild. Like the most time, like, cause it's been growing too. Like, cause when I go on a long trip, I'll plan like a certain day. So if I'm gone for like 6 weeks, we've done a couple long ones. Then I'll plan like one day to just check in with my clients, and then the rest of the time. But I got to extend. But it's like an extended trip. But then I've also the trip to Peru that I just brought up. I did 10 days, and I ended up coming home early to just spend more time with my family. But I extended another 7 days without taking any calls or emails, and just spent that time with my family, and nothing blew up.
Exactly.
It was all fine. Yeah, everything's fine, and none of my clients were upset. And you know, the one thing you were saying, planning for it, is that I told all my clients I'm going to go work on me so I can be a better better provider for you, and they welcome that. I've done that several times in my business.
You know, and if you're working in a company, just like you remember when you were taking swimming lessons, where you were swimming in a lake and you had to have a buddy, the buddy system.
Right.
Also have a buddy at work. Just like it was a matter of survival in the pool or in the lake, it's also a matter of survival in the work environment.
Right.
Have a buddy that can kind of cover for you while you're gone. And let your clients know you're going to be gone. One of the things my friend did, he said his autopilot, his autoresponder, saying, you know, I'm going to be gone, I'm on vacation, and I'm actually going to delete, when I come back, I'm going to delete all the emails in my inbox. I'm not going to even look at them. So please don't email me. Email me, you know, the day after I get back.
Wow, yeah.
When he came back, there were only 2 or 3 emails in his inbox. People actually respected that.
That's beautiful.
And then, you know, people started emailing and just, you know, life got back to normal.
Right.
But I also say, you know, if you must, you must. There's people that, you know, you have to take a call. I have a friend that lives, you know, in Santa Rosa. He's also a colleague from the National Speakers Association. And he's also a LinkedIn tutor.
Okay.
And so he had scheduled a video webcast, you know, months ahead of time. He had 50 students all over the U.S. watching this, and it was going to happen right over this trip, an anniversary trip, just not any trip.
So that was just an accident, or?
Yeah, because he had set, you know, the date for the webcast months ahead of time. He forgot because he was, you know, with such lead time. He forgot that it was also the trip of his anniversary. So, you know, he talked to his wife, and it was fine. You know, the wife travels a lot for business, and so she's used to being connected all the time. So, but he kept his technology off during the rest of the trip, before and after that webcast. And actually what happened was they went on a road trip down the California coast, and on that day they were in Monterey. And the wife said, oh, it's even better because I'm going to go to the spa for 3 hours.
Right.
You know, and so he had his webcast. He sat in the balcony of his room. And he actually, you know, turned his laptop around so people could see Monterey Bay, which is beautiful. And the students were even more engaged.
Right.
They talked for maybe 5 minutes at the beginning of the webcast about the trip and
Right.
the location and everything, and they were really engaged and they loved it.
Right.
So it didn't really affect his trip. The wife went to the spa, and then they enjoyed the rest of the afternoon. They had a beautiful romantic dinner at the Cannery, I think the restaurant is.
Right. Yeah.
And it was perfect.
Yeah.
So if you must, you must. But keep it to really the essential, to emergencies, to a minimal.
To a plan. Yeah. Like I said, exactly. Just schedule those things. I'm curious, with all the travels you've done, is there a place that you'd say made the greatest impact? Or I mean, is it, is there, if someone was looking like, hey, for me to get the most out of my holiday or my vacation, are there certain areas around the world that you think people should put at the top of their list?
Yeah, again, it depends. Everybody's different.
Right.
So my bucket list will be very different to your bucket list.
Right.
Tremendously. My interests are very different. But there's, so far, the trip of my lifetime has been Bhutan. And people say, Bhutan, where's that? What do you eat that with?
Yeah.
Bhutan is a tiny kingdom in the Himalayas between Tibet or China and India. It's about the size of Maryland, which is very small. They're very Buddhist. And it's the last place of true happiness on earth. The king, or actually the king's father, a very wise man, a true visionary, some years ago came up with this idea. He said, all the countries in the world measure their success by GDP, by gross domestic product. If the GDP grows, they're successful, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're happy.
Right.
As a matter of fact, in many cases, the economy can be great and people are still sad, bored, unhappy.
Not going on vacation.
Not going on vacation. So he said, GDP is not really important to us. What's really important is happiness. And he came up with the idea of gross national happiness. It's beautiful.
Gross
national happiness. He actually him and his ministers develop a way to measure it. And every couple of years, they measure the happiness index in the country. And they're very poor, very, very poor. They don't have anything in Bhutan. They don't have oil or minerals or coal or anything. They live out of subsistence agriculture. They pretty much just grow potatoes and turnips, and they import a lot of stuff from India. Very, very, very basic. But they're happy.
Wow, yeah.
They're happy with what they've got. And so, some years ago, the king, he was only 54, so he turned the power over to his son. He sent his son to study in the UK. I think he went to Oxford or Cambridge. And he came back, and so the king father, turned power over to his son, because he said, I'm not the right person to guide our nation into the 21st century. And so the king, who was 24, I believe at the time, took over. And he said, we got to modernize Bhutan a little bit, still keep our traditions and all of that.
Right.
We got to come out of isolation, because they were really isolated. They only allowed the first tourists in 1972. It's not that long ago. So for centuries, they were completely isolated.
Wow.
And I had never heard of Bhutan in my life until I was in Morocco on another vacation, and some of the people that I was with in Morocco, I asked them that same question. What has been the best trip of your life so far? And they said Bhutan.
Wow.
And they told me about Bhutan, and it was really incredible because starting that day, every so often I would come across things that were about Bhutan. It's crazy.
Wow.
Have you ever had?
Oh, absolutely. Like you see something you've never seen before, and then you see it 5 more times.
Right.
Yeah,
like you want, a new red Lexus, and all of a sudden, everywhere you look, there's red Lexus.
Yeah.
So it was like that. It was really weird. And in Bhutan, I mean, like, who had heard about Bhutan before? I would go to a store and look at it wasn't even a travel magazine, maybe Cosmopolitan. Why was I looking at Cosmopolitan?
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah.
But I would just open it at random, and there was an article about the king of Bhutan getting married. It was just weird. And so it took me about 3 years to plan this trip, and eventually I made it to Bhutan, and it was incredible. I spent 10 days. It was magical being in the mountains.
Wow.
Some of the tallest mountains in the world, the Himalayas.
Wow.
And with these people who are so humble and so simple, and learning about their culture and their religion. It was so interesting. It was, like I said, they're really Buddhist.
Wow.
Even more than India or Thailand or other countries. It was very magical, and to realize that, we the only things we care about is, having the latest HD TV.
Right.
And being up to date with what's going on, in the latest TV shows and politics and all these things. And so being there made me realize about my own life, and where I am, where I want to go, that I definitely need to slow down, and that there's a lot more to life than, what we have at home here in America every day.
Right. It's so great. I know I've met some of the happiest people, and they have so much less when I'm in other countries. And I have friends that have so many things, or people I know here in the States, and they're not as happy, and they have so many things, and the things aren't what make us happy. And it's taken me a lot of years, because I was that work hard. I came from Italian immigrants, and we just they worked so hard, and I kept working. And even as I met my wife and we were dating, and even to our early years of our marriage, she would always say, "Don't you stop and smell the roses?" Or she would see something and I'd be like, "No, I didn't see that." And that could still happen from day here and there, but it's a lot less than it used to be. Or even I'm pointing something out to her here and there, but and I still have a long way to go to totally relax into it. But especially in the last 3 to 5 years, it's felt so good to explore the world and take that time, and it does just fill everything else up and make everything else worthwhile, just to take that time.
It makes life worth living.
Right, because otherwise it's just going to pass by. Yeah,
And very fast.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that we got to spend this time together, and I look forward to doing this in other parts of the world with you. That'll be cool. We'll have to do another interview in some other country.
And you know what? Bye. I gotta go on vacation.
Right? Yeah, you're gonna take off. He's gonna leave. He's gonna leave soon. I just want to say the tremendous flexibility you have, because you came up here to hang out here, and then coming from Mexico City, and then coming to do this interview, and now you decided Marco was gonna leave tomorrow, and now you just told me, you know what? I'm gonna stay longer. My wife's gonna fly in now, and we're gonna spend time in San Francisco, and so you're just living and traveling, and you're doing it. I admire that. It's awesome that you're doing that, Marco. And then now taking your life and sharing that with others. And I can tell you right now, I can't wait for your book to come out and be able to start to make more of an impact. And I hope a lot more, especially Americans, as you heard all the statistics, that you listen and get Marco's book when it comes out. Hopefully, what do you think, by the end of the year?
I think early 2018.
You start with 2018. Might as well have that copyright 2018 instead of 2017. Yeah. So look for it next year. Until then, how can they follow you?
They can follow me on Instagram, Facebook @JourneyMarco. And I hope that my pictures will inspire you to travel, take your vacation.
That's beautiful. Well, and if you've gotten value from this, you gained value, please subscribe. Tell us what you loved about this. What was the greatest value you got from the episode? And go ahead and ask us questions. Like Marco just said, we're on social media. I'm on social media. Connect even right here with this video. You can let us know what questions you have, if there's a burning question that comes from this. And please, as always, with the Steve Show, let me know what other topics you'd like me to share, and what challenges you're having, so I can help you with those as well. And until next time, choose gratitude and create freedom.